Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 Sonic games. For this list, we'll be looking at the best of the Blue Blur's releases, whether they be 2D or 3D. Which Sonic game tops your list? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 20. Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Fans usually know what to expect from Sonic, but the Dark Brotherhood was not your average Sonic game. Developed by BioWare for the DS, the RPG had players slow down quite a bit. The story starts in relatively familiar territory, with Knuckles kidnapped and the Chaos Emerald stolen. But from there, Sonic and Co. must contend with invaders from an alternate dimension. Turn-based battle mechanics didn't exactly innovate or impress, but it was still interesting seeing Sonic in this setting. Unfortunately, it ends on an unresolved cliffhanger. BioWare's plans for a sequel were dropped once EA purchased the studio. Number 19. Sonic Lost World.
That's funny, because I know the perfect spot to kick you!
Most Sonic games pit the Hedgehog against his arch-nemesis, Dr. Robotnik. But in this installment, he was forced to team up with Eggman to stop a new threat, a group of aliens known as the Deadly Six. Visually, it was a genuine treat with a bright color scheme and unique cylindrical level designs. When it came to controls, however, that's where Lost World faltered. It introduced parkour mechanics, which were tricky to get the hang of when combined with Sonic's somewhat stilted movement. While teaming up with Eggman provides fun interactions, the actual villains were pretty bland. However, it's still far from the worst 3D Sonic game. Number 18. Sonic Battle.
Time to party!
Another handheld breakaway from traditional Sonic gameplay was this arena fighter on the Game Boy Advance. The story was unremarkable, focusing on Eggman trying to steal and use Sonic's newly awakened robot pal, Emerald. However, it had plenty else going for it. Sonic Battle controlled surprisingly well for a handheld fighter. Like a scaled-down Smash, it provided fun but short bouts with computer rivals or your friends. And if you ever got bored of fighting, there were fun mini-games to indulge in, like racing, coin collecting, and a Knuckles-centric version of Minesweeper. While you wouldn't gain much on playing it these days, it was a decent spin-off for the time. Number 17. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. We doubt there will ever come a time when we grow tired of falling block puzzle games. In 1993, 2 years after Puyo Puyo became a hit in Japan, Sega released a Sonic-themed version for Western consoles. Just like Puyo Puyo and many other puzzle games like it, gameplay was simple yet highly addictive. You play as a bean, breaking into Eggman's dungeons to save your people from enslavement. Getting 4 beans in a row set them free, with victory coming when your opponent's screen overflows. Additionally, Mean Bean Machine adapted the style of the Hedgehog's animated series at the time rather than the games, making for a more era-specific style. Number 16. Sonic Heroes. Sonic Heroes was the first Sonic game to release across multiple platforms following Sega's retreat from the console market. Gameplay blended the 3D mechanics from the Adventure series with the linear design of the 2D classics. However, what made it stand apart were its 4 stories, each of which followed a different team consisting of 3 characters, each of whom had different abilities. There was a lot of variety in how you played, especially considering all 4 varied in difficulty. Plus, it expanded the roster by bringing in some lesser-known characters from Knuckles' Chaotix. Despite some poor voice acting, Heroes was a fast-paced joy to play. Number 15. Sonic Unleashed. Sonic Unleashed gets a bad rap from some fans for being the weird entry that turned Sonic into a werewolf. Sorry, werehog. But that doesn't mean it isn't fun to play. Quite the opposite, in fact. Daytime levels featured your standard Sonic gameplay with a focus on speed, while nighttime levels saw Sonic transform, moving slower for platforming sections and using brute strength to fight off enemies. Sure, it certainly took some getting used to, but the variety was appreciated. While the transformation element naturally overshadowed everything else, the level design was great, and the more orchestral score fit better with the monstrous focus than rock soundtracks of past entries. Number 14. Sonic Rush Adventure. With 3D Sonic games trying something new in almost every entry, fans needed to look to handheld devices for classic gameplay in a modern era. A sequel to 2005's Sonic Rush, this entry saw Sonic reteam with Blaze the Cat to stop a band of robot pirates from stealing a powerful scepter for Eggman. Gameplay was just as fluid and quick-paced as you'd expect, just with a nautical twist. Traveling between different islands required building different ships, and the actual travel came in the form of a minigame. It didn't bring enough new content that wasn't already in its predecessor. But as it was released the year after the critically panned Sonic 06, that definitely wasn't a deal breaker. Number 13. Sonic Advance 2. Like we said, if you wanted classic Sonic gameplay in this particular era, you needed to look to handheld devices. Sonic Advance was a great trilogy for the Game Boy Advance, and while all of them are fun, the second is just a bit stronger than the others. It was essentially like being able to take the old school games on the go, but with the added benefit of 4 other playable characters. Each one played relatively differently, giving fans a reason to replay levels. It was also much tougher than the other 2, forcing you to adapt by picking the best character for the job. For Sonic fans with GBAs, this was a must-have. Number 12. Sonic Generations. In honor of the franchise's 20th anniversary in 2011, Sega released a game that blended both eras of Sonic. The time travel plot saw Sonic and Tails team up with past versions of themselves to stop Eggman, who had done the same for world domination. Naturally, past Sonic raced across 2D levels, while present-day Sonic did so in 3D. Not only did this make for varied gameplay, but the levels themselves were all based on those of past games. It was a fantastic way to honor Sonic's legacy, especially seeing some levels with a refreshed presentation. Despite a few technical issues here and there, Sonic Generations was a strong entry in the series. Number 11. Sonic Rush. Though its sequel didn't bring quite enough new to the table, the first Sonic Rush was a breath of fresh air. While Sega was still experimenting in the 3D space, Rush followed up on the classic gameplay the Advance series upheld. The 2.5D visuals were extremely strong for the time, and the 2 screens of the DS offered plenty of space to show them off. It also introduced us to the strong-willed Blaze the Cat, who would become a recurring character in Sonic's bigger games. Additionally, Rush was definitely the right word to use as the game moved extremely fast. Not that we're complaining, that's kind of Sonic's whole shtick. Number 10. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. Although it doesn't seem like Sonic would ever need a vehicle to race someone, he starred in a handful of kart racers over the years. But 2012's Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is definitely the strongest. While he lent his name to the title, it features racers from other Sega franchises as well. The franchise-inspired tracks were gorgeous, on top of providing ample fan service. More importantly, it was a major improvement over its predecessor. Like the best kart racers, it's easy for anyone to pick up but provides enough challenge to keep them playing. If only other racing games starring the Blue Blur could reach these heights. Number 9. Sonic Adventure. Firstly, let's get the negative out of the way. The voice acting and dialogue grow cringier every year, and no one likes playing as Big the Cat. That being said, Sonic Adventure deserves a ton of praise. The other 5 characters were plenty of fun to control as they attempted to stop Eggman from unleashing an ancient god of destruction. It reinvented Sonic within the 3D space, moving away from the linear structure of old and introducing wide, explorable environments. Levels like Windy Valley and Casinopolis transitioned Sonic's gameplay remarkably well. Although 3D Sonic would become divisive among fans, there's no denying how great of a start it had. Number 8. Sonic Frontiers. With the mediocre reception to Lost World and even worse reception of Sonic Forces, 3D Sonic seemed to be in another slump. Thankfully, Frontiers pulled him out of it. So many franchises have gone open world that it seemed only a matter of time before Sonic did. It turned out to be the right direction. Sonic's immense speed paired with the open design gives you a fantastic sense of freedom. While the plot wasn't anything to write home about, that didn't actually matter when we were blazing across awesome landscapes. With Frontiers, Sega wanted to give Sonic a new model for future games to follow, and we'd say the team succeeded. Number 7. Sonic the Hedgehog. They say you never forget your first. In 1991, Nintendo had an unremarkable hold on the video game market, with Sega struggling to keep up. But then, a little hedgehog named Sonic came along. The original game in the series prioritized quick gameplay more than anything else at the time, sending players blasting through each level. Sonic's speed and attitude gave birth to a belief that Nintendo was behind the times, leading to the first console wars. However, that wasn't all it had going for it. Level designs were a little more complex, with multiple paths, and the music gave us classics that still get stuck in our head. Needless to say, it was a fantastic first impression. Number 6. Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors debuted after a handful of 3D games failed to capture audiences. And so, it was a genuine surprise and delight when it turned out to be one of the best Sonic games ever made. The game was scaled back in a way, having Sonic be the only playable hero. Other than the Wisps, cute aliens that gave you different abilities, there also wasn't a gimmick. Just Sonic blazing through incredible levels, which blended 2D and 3D gameplay better than most other entries that tried. Not for nothing, but it gave Nintendo fans a nice exclusive, as it only launched on the Wii and DS until it was remastered in 2021. Number 5. Sonic Mania. Unless you had a handheld system, you had to settle for console outings that blended 2D and 3D gameplay. But for those of us who craved the old school mechanics, as well as the classic presentation, Sonic Mania had you more than covered. Sega worked with prominent fan game creator Christian Whitehead, which turned out to be one of its smartest decisions in years. Mania featured a mix of new levels and redesigned classics, and it controlled like an absolute dream. It felt like we were playing a long-lost Genesis entry, which is to say that the whole package was downright incredible. If that wasn't enough greatness for you, it also got an enhanced version in 2018 that added new characters and content. Number 4. Sonic Adventure 2. Now this is how you do a 3D Sonic game. Sonic Adventure 2 was monumentally fun and made all the improvements on the first one that fans could have wanted. With 2 different stories, players could view the plot from the perspective of the heroes or the villains. Each team consisted of 3 characters, with wildly different mechanics and level designs. And unlike the first game, all of them were fun to play as. Plus, it was accompanied by a kick-ass rock soundtrack that fit its style very well. Sure, like many other early 3D games, the camera hasn't aged well at all, but it remains one of the strongest games on the Dreamcast, as well as our pick for the best 3D Sonic. Number 3. Sonic CD. The financial disappointment of the Sega CD add-on meant not as many players got to experience Sonic CD when it first released. It has since been ported to other platforms, which we're extremely grateful for considering how truly great it is. While it looked and played similarly to its predecessors, it had Sonic traveling through different points in time for each level. By traveling through these periods, you change the music and layout of each area in unique ways. This gave it the strongest presentation of any retro Sonic game, accompanied by strong visuals and sound design thanks to the more impressive hardware. Every Sonic fan who missed it initially owes it to themselves to seek it out. Number 2. Sonic and Knuckles. The original Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was so big that Sega had to split it into 2 games. The studio made the cartridge so it could lock on to Sonic 3, with the results being 2 excellent games in one. While each one was worth your time, connecting both allowed you to use characters that didn't appear in the other for a change in gameplay as well as access to hidden areas. You could even use it to go back and play Sonic 2 as Knuckles, who was first introduced here. All of these nifty features on top of the pristine gameplay, music, and level design made Sonic such a strong challenger to Mario's legacy.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Sonic the Hedgehog quickly gained a reputation as one of the best platformers ever. And yet, what came next blew it out of the water. Everything was dialed to 11. Gameplay and movement was just a bit faster, and the levels were just a bit larger and more intricate. The art style popped thanks to crisper visuals, and the incredible soundtrack gave us chiptunes that have stood the test of time. Sega could have just left it at that and called it a win. But Sonic 2 also introduced Sonic's best pal, Tails, which brought new gameplay to single player or let a second player join in. It isn't just the best Sonic game of all time, it's one of the best games, period. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.